Hey guys, I'm sorry I took so long to get another video out here. It's been forever, and so I decided that I would throw one up and do one. It's been a really long time. I just finished a book, so I had some time today, and so I've decided to put up a new video. So this is my review of Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Clive? I hope I'm saying his name right. So as in all of my reviews, let's start with the good. The good in this story is it was entertaining. I liked it. So the premise is main character lives in kind of a post-apocalyptic, post-fossil fuel, kind of a dystopic type fantasy type world, but not really. Like there wasn't a huge destructive event, cataclysmic. Am I saying that right? Cataclysmic event that destroyed everything. It was just, you know, fossil fuels ran out, and so technology apparently wasn't on its top game in that world, and so it didn't. They didn't adapt. They didn't create, algae or biofuels or whatever. So everything kind of went to hell in a handbasket, and now they have the super rich and the super poor. To cope with this crappy world, the people have turned to video games. They have a giant online video world called OASIS, I believe it's called. And OASIS is pretty much everything to everyone. People live in the game. They make money through the game. Think of like the Google of the online world. Like they've pretty much taken care of everything. The creator of the world, Halliday, dies. It's kind of the beginning part of the story. He dies, and he's really, really rich, $280 billion or something. And he controls this world, and he puts an Easter egg, a treasure hunt, basically, inside of this game. That if you find it, you take over the company. That's his final game, it's his final piece, it's his final thing, and he doesn't know how hard it is, and so everyone's trying to find, that's where the story starts, everyone's trying to find this Easter egg, this treasure hunt, this thing that allows them to take over his fortune and take over this oasis, this online game. So the premise is pretty interesting, actually. It's kind of got a Matrix meets Indiana Jones type feel that's less serious. Like, Matrix was a very serious type of game. Type of movie. When this is a little less serious until you get later on in the story. So the main character, Wade, I believe his name is one of these people who makes it. He associates himself with searching for this Easter egg. That's kind of what he does. So he studies everything that this creator, Halliday is the guy's name. This creator loves, and that's what he spends his free time doing when he's not in school, because he basically doesn't have anything else to do. So that's kind of the premise of the story. And like I said, the good of this book is I even took some notes here, because I don't usually do. I just talk at the camera. It's interesting. It's entertaining. The storyline, there's a combination of factors. I think most of the factors that go into the storyline are actually pretty not even subpar, mediocre at best, but the combination of all the different factors makes it more than the whole. So the individual parts come together, and it's more than the whole, and it makes it for an interesting read. I read it in about a day. It's an easy read, and I liked it. I'd read it again. It was entertaining. A couple of the other good things: plot flows well. It's a fast read. It's got a clear direction. Good guys, bad guys. The elements of the story are laid out very, very nicely. The references, the pop culture references to the 80s, mind you, I could have done without. I don't think it added anything and didn't necessarily take anything to story. I think that's what he thought was interesting, and that's where he based it on. Some of the stuff was neat. There's a final battle scene between the evil corporation. I'll get to the socio-political landscape here in a minute, but the evil corporation and the heroes of the story, who end up being a conglomerate of like 4 main characters. The evil empire, the evil corporation versus these players, and it's a big giant battle with all these online gamers. And if you die, it's not a big deal in the world, because you're just making a new avatar, but you have to start over. And so there's this leaderboard on there with this story, and if you fall off that leaderboard, you can't claim the prize. You can't go directly to the end, basically, even if you know where the last prize is. You got to go to get all 3 of these keys, and go to all 3 of these gates, and you got to do them all properly. And so if you do that all properly, you win. And so our main character, along with a group of other misfits, basically, are trying to do that and trying to beat out this evil corporation who's trying to take over this space to basically monetize it and do what evil corporations do. It's not super original, but it was very entertaining. The negatives, so let's transition to the negatives now. The negatives of the story was the geopolitical social landscape discussion was I could have done without. For example, the evil corporation is always the evil corporation, and I understand it. Talking about burning of fossil fuels, and like it's very, very clear where the direction of this author's political landscape currently goes, and I thought it was too much. Thought it laid it on a little thick. I don't think it had added anything to the story. That's not necessarily true. In some circumstances, I think it added, because I can understand it. For example, the main character is an atheist because of all the bad things that happens. I can understand that. Like, that makes sense. But there was another one. There was a and there are some spoilers in there, so turn it off if you don't want to be spoiled. But at one point, there's one character that is a male character on the game, ends up being a black lesbian character, which is not inherently a bad thing, but I don't think that, and it goes into a social commentary of how this black lesbian's mother kicked her out of the house, and it just didn't add anything at that point in the story. It just didn't add anything. He did it just to do it, and I guess I don't believe in social commentary when it doesn't add anything to the story. Like, politics are politics, leave politics at home. But that's just me. I mean, who cares about my opinion, right? I thought the writing was lackluster. I don't think I think the main character was super forgettable. If I cannot think of any defining factors of this main character that brings him to mind. Like, I don't even remember the guy's call sign. Percival, I think it was. Like, I don't even remember. Like, he was forgettable. And maybe that was done on purpose, because the idea was to be able to put yourself in that main character seat. And that could have been the case, but the main character wasn't particularly interesting. I didn't particularly, side with him. Like, I didn't identify with him. And I think it's really, really important in stories to create a real positive main character. The plot in this story was what really, the Easter eggs and the hunting and the finding and the Indiana-esque Jones type characterization and adventure was what really draws you to the story. Because it wasn't the characters. I don't think the main characters or the bad guys were particularly interesting or brought much to the story, except for as a avenue to enable the mystery to be solved. That being said, the mystery could have been hashed out better. The main character always had to step up. His answer to every single conflict, every single problem was, I studied this and I've done this, and for example, at one point, one of the key plot points is he plays Pac-Man, and he plays a perfect game, all 642 levels. And unless you've been playing Pac-Man for a decade, I don't know anyone that can do that. Like, I can't even beat, and I'm a pretty big gamer. I couldn't do a perfect score for 20 levels of Pac-Man, let alone 642. It's things like that in the story that even though he stays true to his own rules within the story, the suspension of disbelief is a little bit too much. But that being said, I did enjoy the story. I read it in about a day, and it was a fun book. I think it could have been better if he had drawn the book story out a little bit more, added more layers of the characterization, made the story a little bit more complex, as opposed to the main character always has the answers all the time. Added an additional kind of hardship for the main character, because I don't think you particularly feel with him. If he made a little bit longer, made the book maybe instead of one book, maybe 3. I think he could have added layers of characterization upon the main characters and the quasi love story that he has going on with another one of the gamers and with his friends. Like, really build some camaraderie and build those characters, and so you care about them. Because at this point, you really don't. Like, even throughout the whole story, you get to the end, you're like, cool, he won, awesome, right? But the only thing you really care about is that how he did it. How did you get to the winner's circle, not who it was? Like, you know, not who it was. You don't really care about the characters. However, as I said, everything comes to a whole on this one. The parts are good enough. All the individual parts are good enough that it made for an entertaining story. I give it probably 3 stars. Will I read it again? Yeah. Would I read a follow-up? I think so. Right? It was good enough that I'd read a follow-up. My favorite book of the year? Probably not. I do think it would make an interesting movie. It'll be interesting, and I think they have the rights for it. And what goes to show you about this book is that if you've got a good contract with a big company and they're willing to put some advertising dollars into it, you can become real popular real quick. You know, I think this book came out in July or June, and it's already, I mean, it's got thousands of downloads on Amazon, and this guy's making money. So, good for him. Collin Earl, more about me at my site down below. I got the links down below. Check me out, and this is my review of Ready Player One. Later.